SSC or and
SSC offering.
SSC, yes, of course.
What you did at the similarly to what you did at the year gathering.
Okay, good. Then half an hour?
Yes.
Okay. Let me share my screen then. If I can get it done. Voila. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right. So let's. So this is a brief summary of, like, it's an adapted version of what the annual review that we did in the SSC call earlier this year, which is basically a review of what we did last year, what we're going this year, and what our offering is. I'm gonna go through the review, looking back and forward a bit quicker, but still to give you some background. Obviously, it starts with some nice pictures of what we did last year. You might at least recognize the one on the bottom left, and that was part of we had a kind of photo award and sustainable supply chains. I'll show you that in the end. So last year was indeed a quite exciting year for us, with a lot of time on site, a lot of work in different areas: Turkey, Malawi, Zambia, strategy sessions in Zurich, and so forth. Here you see Lars on site in Malawi doing some water quality tests. That's, by the way, one of the winning pictures in our SSC photo awards that we did this year for the first time. And this is another winning picture that William took in the project for JTI, the tobacco company in Zambia, the project. An overview over people that have worked on mandates. So by now we have, I would say, like 10, 12 people which are working mostly on supply chains, but of course you're working very closely with other practices as well, including other consultants in CNS mandate, but also working with people in the project unit quite closely, including, for example, Daniela and Abel, who's not on the list right now. Overview what we did last year: we did 41 consulting mandates and 5 projects. So we are, I think, the only CNS unit who is also doing projects, so 300 numbers in Antarctica, namely the insetting projects. Our largest ones are still mostly with Philip Morris, which is next to Coop, our largest client. So we did their work on curing fuel, what they call the MVR, which is an infamous misspelling of MRV, but that's how they use it. And PMI water, so there's about global mandates that help them to improve their stewardship on A, curing fuel for tobacco, and B, water management around tobacco. Other big mandates, Coop WF, a new project that we got off the ground, which is a Kenyan, Naivasha specifically, watershed reforestation. The first insetting project for L'Oreal, which is in Indonesia, a peatland rewetting project, and some other things which are a bit different in topic, such as British Telecom, supply engagement, Dow Chemical on low carbon building technologies, and our CDP scoring partnership which we did last year for the last time, because they changed their setup of partnerships. We also submitted total 46 proposals, on which we were successful in 20, and I think that's the stats as per end of year or earlier this year, where 11 were still open and the remainder were lost or dropped. I can skip that. Here you see our clients last year, Firmenich. Well, the biggest ones are really L'Oreal, Coop, Philip Morris, and then we have a long tail of other ones such as Unilever, Firmenich, Dow, Beiersdorf, and so forth. A key target, and you will see that also later, for this year is to increase the space, because we're quite heavily dependent on this client base, quite heavily dependent on our most important clients, the ones that I just mentioned. So, strategy at one glance. Our topic is really agricultural supply chains, mostly between the global south, in all, in Latin America and Africa, or in southern and southeast Asia particularly, and mostly Europe, where our clients are based. We also are reaching out a little bit to US with the company's extension into the US and the New York office that's currently being set up. But core is still Europe. our offering is around what we call positive impact, or we also call this often supply chain action in carbon water forests. So the core is really insetting, which has really went through a renaissance this year, and it's really picking up in the market quite strongly. So it's really the core office, the most important offering right now we're doing. But that's complemented also by water stewardship mandates, mostly at the watershed level, and also zero deforestation topics. So those three are kind of our heart. And if we tell our clients what we're doing, we always say, our USP is action on the ground. We develop projects and programs to do that. But at the same time, we also have people which are more in the strategy side. So we help you to identify where you should take action and what your strategy and your target setting and so forth should be, how to engage with your suppliers and where to prioritize your suppliers. That goes to risk assessment, strategy development, supplier scoring, and so forth. We see this internally as a complementary offering, because probably why we are competitive in the market is because of this first point, because we are standing for action, and not many competitors can say that they really understand what's happening on the ground and can help them, the clients, to action on the ground. But we also, in order to win those mandates, deliver the active side, we also need to be good, reasonably, let's say, on the strategy side. That's where the complementary side comes in. I can hear a lot of echo. Is that because there are some questions, or is it just because of the audio? So if you have any questions, just interrupt me anytime. Otherwise, I just keep talking. In terms of our clients, I said already, Europe-based brands and retailers. This year, we specifically focus on cocoa and cosmetics, and on then the broader food and beverage companies and their suppliers, such as agribusinesses. We're trying to focus on the big ones under the hypothesis that those big ones, we say 1 billion per year is our benchmark, those big ones can afford to work with us, and really set up some project and programs, in the midterm, and really work with us over several years. The small ones often are a bit, for them, it's a bit of too much of a challenge to engage in those kind of activities on the ground, supply chain action activities. Drivers for working with us, often it's commitments such as insetting climate neutrality commitments. SPTs is something we're obviously looking more closely in now and developing a specific SPT offering currently. New York Declaration on Forest, Alliance for Water Stewardship, and other ones. Differently, in terms of business model, differently than other CNS practices, we are not only doing consultancy, which of course is our core part, but we are also doing on-delivery carbon payments. So this is where the projects come in that I mentioned earlier. And here, typically, we have higher margins. So here, we basically agree on a carbon delivery contract with our client, and then we're getting, of course, we have to justify why we set the price to a certain level by showing what our costs are on the back end. But typically, this allows us to, get much more. We get them paid per delivery of a carbon credit, a carbon certificate, and that allows us to have much higher margins than if you have to, work on smaller consulting mandates. Last year, we had a growth of around 38% in gross margin, from a bit more than 1 million to 1.4 million. We would like to achieve this year around 10% growth. In terms of future growth topics, financing for us is very important. You might have heard of the concept Water Action Fund. But it might also take different names. We're working in different funds currently on how can we get engaged more in innovative financing in the area around cocoa. So are some discussions right now, also more specifically around water. So let's see in which directions that will go. Renewable energy and supply chain is a topic that we find interesting, particularly related to now the new practice on renewable energy. Data-driven models, can you see that? The big chain tool is our first venture in that area. I think we don't have to go too much in detail on this, but just to reiterate, really our strategic initiatives that we launched this year and that we're doing a lot of BD on is cosmetics.
There's a question, sorry.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a renewable energy thing. Who's there really the lead in the supply chain management?
So it's hard to understand. Can we?
Sorry, you can use your question. Can you repeat the question, or do you want me to go?
It helps if I
Okay. No, I was wondering on the renewable energy. Who would be leading that within the sustainable supply chain team?
So
because I think this is more like Jean or the project team.
So it will be the new practice lead mostly on that will be hired for renewable energy services that we're looking for. So it's basically going to be, I would say it's slightly outdated the reference to that, but it's something we would like to deliver together with the new practice lead that we are about to hire. Internally, we have done a little bit work with that around.
We're going to mute again. Can you repeat, Tilman?
All right. So in terms of who has some, I mean, we're not going to lead, but we would like to, support then the other practice to deliver on that. Internally, Dominic and Alexandra have done a little bit of work around this topic. But clearly, it wasn't quite clear. The slides are slightly outdated, I would say. It wasn't quite clear at that point. Right now, it's really clear that renewable energy services will lead that. But we think that we can offer them, help them, enable them to offer slightly different tweaks by bringing in this supply chain logic, which they haven't, per se, they might not have as strongly in their offering. Maybe they probably start to look more into operations and so forth. We can then help them. There's a question of how can a corporate also engage their suppliers and make them move to renewable energy rather than just themselves. So there we can, bring in our knowledge. And again, Alexandra and Dominic have done a little bit of work in that area. This year's targets, I mentioned we would like to achieve 10% gross margin, gross margin growth. The most important thing really strategically is that we extend our client base. So we'd like to not only keep all our existing clients, including the ones that you see here, where it's particularly a bit tricky, but we don't know for sure that we will keep them. But we really run to get 5 new clients this year. And I think we're doing not too bad. We already won Chanel, which is potentially a really big client. Beiersdorf is the first time that we're having an independent project with them as well this year. So we could count them as a new client despite, having somewhat started. It's a bit tricky situation with them. Somewhat started last year already. And we also won Chocolate Halba. And we are on also with quite a few other clients. So we're quite confident we can meet this 5 new clients target this year. And again, the focus in terms of BD this year and also marketing this year is cocoa, cosmetics, and more secondary dairy and cattle. Those are really the ones that we're pushing quite strongly. Question?
Yeah, this is Mariano speaking, Tilman.
I recognize your voice.
Do you have specific strategy on how to choose clients, or is it just kind of like a rule of thumb type of thing?
How to do what clients?
How to choose which clients to prioritize in terms of targeting who to work with?
Yeah. So by and large, we have this big pool. Basically, we say what won't change under SSC is that we want clients who have agricultural supply chains in the global south, mostly food and beverage, but maybe whoever that is. It's mostly food and beverage, but then also luxury goods and cosmetics. So that's the overall, and the second additional condition kind of that they're large enough, so over 1 billion. That's our big pool that we want to fish in. Now we're having within this big pool, we notice that there are some hotspots where we have a hypothesis, a good guess, an educated guess that there we might get more traction, because either we have already some track record or the market is developing quite dynamically in that area. And for this year, as we said, our hypothesis is that it's cosmetics and cocoa. And now we're kind of more or less systematically going through those. At least, we're going systematically through conferences where we know the sector is present, and we talk specific to them and try to really, focus on those. So we developed. Well, we haven't really finalized that exercise, but we started to develop some kind of hit list. So we really said those are the companies that we want to target on. And really, maybe some quite interesting in our work is that what we're playing a lot to is the network effect. So, and that really yields quite strongly because our work is typically about on the interlink between clients and their suppliers. And it can start with a client, which is, is a brand or a retailer like L'Oreal or Coop, or it can also start with a supplier, which can be a flower farm. It can also be a big company such as Barry Callebaut, the world's largest chocolate manufacturer. So, and since it's mostly about this network effect, we're trying to play a lot to that. So if we're knowing that Barry Callebaut has a certain interest, we're going to all of Barry Callebaut clients and say, guys, don't you want to jump on the boat because Barry Callebaut has a certain interest? And if we're doing the same in the cosmetic, for example. So we're working with L'Oreal, that makes us much more interesting for L'Oreal suppliers to work with us. And it makes us much more interesting also to L'Oreal's peers. So it's not by chance that we won Chanel, one of the competitors or peers of Beiersdorf. It's not by chance that we won Beiersdorf. And it's not by chance that we're getting now traction with the suppliers into L'Oreal, Chanel, and Beiersdorf. So we're playing a lot according to this network. So we're trying to kind of, get a foot in the ground with some client and then expand from there. So that's, I think, a very important piece of our strategy in BD in supply chains.
Timon.
Pablo.
I have a question as well. From my understanding and what the work we did together, Diana and I, and well, about biodiversity, yeah, I see that many of the cosmetics are actually presenting some very vague, but actually indeed goals in terms of biodiversity. Can we consider this sort of a R&D department for sustainable supply chains? Where should we actually locate this in our offer or in our practice, rather say?
So biodiversity is a midterm, weak market signal, which we think we should keep an eye on. And that's what we're doing with some work with the University of Cambridge and colleague that we're having working there. So we're trying to get in touch with it, keep in touch, but we're not investing heavily in the topic. But we're, doing some initial research development. Where we're more heavy in research and development, for example, is what we call the SBT action. So how to help, we would like to have a more structured offering where we can help companies which have an SBT, which covers their agricultural supply chain, on how to achieve it. So it's a kind of adapted form of insetting. This is much more higher on our priority list, and this year we will invest more in terms of R&D in this kind of short-term R&D, but we're investing a bit less in the midterm R&D around biodiversity.
SBT, you mean science-based
target.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Science-based target.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, then I move on, but please keep interrupting me. What's up this year? I mean, basically a lot of existing clients, PMI we're working with, L'Oreal we were working with and would like to extend both on the insetting as well on the water side. And PMI is also, we're extending there with different departments, not just the tobacco farming department, but also more the corporate department, corporate sustainability department, corporate affairs, and other ones. WWF, we're also extending. We already got, just 2 days ago, the watershed reforestation project in Ecuador approved. Climate Kick actually is not, I think, no longer going forward, but these are the Climate Kick is not super high on our priority list actually. But other ones that we continue working with, Grupo Bimbo, Miguel, that's your baby here. AIP Prisma is also one that we extended this year from last year. That's an Indonesian project on environmental impact assessment. But also new pipelines that we have in the project that we have in the pipeline. We already won. I mentioned Chanel and Chocolat Halba. Chanel is super exciting, a big strategic mandate around insetting guidance with a strong link to offsetting. Topics are cosmetics, fashion, and jewelry there. Chocolat Halba is a cocoa agroforestry project in Ghana. We're also trying to extend this now with Rittersport down here and with Barry Callebaut as a partner. So this is kind of a project that's alongside Chocolat Halba, relatively similar. We're now pitching for Chibo on cotton and coffee and supply chain climate targets. We're going to talk to Porsche on probably not so much mining, but on insetting, maybe more related to leather. And then other ones, Lidl, like more the long-term. Lidl, Richemont, I think, hasn't really moved on for the time being. Lotus Food also not. But we have a quite stable pipeline right now, quite strong pipeline compared to last year. And particularly new clients, which is really promising. Now, if you go, is there any more questions about strategy? Otherwise, I will move on to the offering. Then if we go to the offering, this is how we typically present it right now. We present it as a house. Again, the USP, supply chain action and positive impact. So basically position ourselves as one that can deliver change on the ground in the context of farming and the global south. In terms of what kind of action interventions this is, it's quite fairly broad. It reaches from climate-smart agriculture, agroforestry, forest conservation, reforestation, into water topics, water stewardship, watershed reforestation, WASH, so water access, covering also partly social projects, community livelihoods, particularly through cook stoves and water filters, partly renewable energy, and then the whole landscape topic, REDD+ and landscape topic. So basically, we say to our practice and our global South Pole capabilities, we can help to deliver all of this on the ground, all of those types of supply chain action. And we're doing that based on strategy and policy and target development that we can help through our more people that are a bit more strong on the strategy consulting side. And based on those, we basically deliver through 4 pillars. One is programs and projects. So that's really very concretely how to develop on-site projects, design and implementation, solution assessments, so what kind of technologies are we using, feasibility studies for projects, forging partnerships, both with local partners, but also with NGOs and other partners where necessary. Sustainable sourcing is all around how to, the connection between a company and its suppliers. So how does this link work? Here it's around traceability assessments, it's around risk assessment, procedures and training for the procurement department of a client, supplier engagement, so and customer engagement if you're working with a supplier on the other side. So here that's actually quite interesting part of our work. I sometimes think about this as almost as if you're a lawyer. We're an agent who gets a mandate from either the customer or the supplier to engage with their suppliers or customer on the other side on certain topics and try to scope what is their interest on taking action X, Y, Z. How can we bring them together to do a joint project? So that's really what I also relates to what I called before the network effect around BD. So this we're getting a mandate from one side and talking on behalf of that party to another party and trying to forge a partnership between the two of them is becoming more and more important in our work. The third pillar is financing. So here, clearly and by far the most important is insetting and carbon finance. So we are helping to set up financing agreements between clients, so downstream players, and suppliers, so the upstream players, in order to take joint action. So we're really, doing all the financial modeling and budgeting and saying the project is working if you're paying a carbon price of X and you're paying it in Y% upfront and Z% on delivery over the years, and then the project will work. And if you're doing that, your supplier will bring 50% or 30% co-funding. So this is really something we've been done many times, basically for all of our insetting projects. And here the other 2 topics that we have under financing are more a bit future topics that we would like to grow into a bit more. Co-funding and blended finance, blended hints to, that we can get public sources or even investor money also into the projects that we're developing. And natural social capital evaluation is a topic that we're offering to our clients. It's more trying to put a dollar value to natural capital and social capital, which helps them to make internal pitches to their CFO. It's not something we do very heavily in-house, but we still have it here as part of our offering because we think it is important to offer to our clients, and we can deliver through partners that we're having. Mostly we have one important external support, which is called Samuel Vionnet, and he's helping us to cover this part of our offering. And then monitoring reporting, this is all about KPIs, including carbon and water footprinting. Again, that's something we're delivering mostly with the CROC team. Then deforestation hotspot assessment is everything around the BCT. And this is probably the most, which is most traditional in our unit, performance and impact monitoring of real action on the ground. How to set up a monitoring system to monitor it, develop KPIs, how to really collect data in the field, how to do quality assessment, how to then create a report and do reporting, and possibly also then it discloses under, for example, CDP. So this is kind of how we present our offering currently, all work in progress, and it keeps evolving, but that's how we currently present it to our clients. And I believe that everything we're doing every mandate can be explained as a combination of those 4, or 6 elements, 4 pillars, the final action and the development of the strategy. Basically, all of what we're doing can be shown as we pick in a little bit of that, pick a little bit of that, take a little bit of that in order to answer the client's needs, address the client's needs. I have for each of them, but we're also running a bit out of time now. I have kind of more detailed slides. Is there something on this level that you have questions or something you would like to go more deeply into out of those 4 pillars and the strategy side? Or any specific questions that you would like to raise on those? Sarah, how do we stand with time? It's my 5, half an hour in. Would you like me to take another 15 minutes and talk to them? Or would you like to point me to one of them, or just do Q&A from this point onwards?
Yeah, I think we could start with the Q&A, but I'm afraid there might be no questions on this.
Then we also need some questions.
If there are no questions, feel free to continue. I think Henrik has one.
Yeah. Hi, Timon. My question was on why, on the first slide, I think you mentioned that agriculture was the focus, agriculture supply chain was the focus of the SSC strategy. Is that because you see that that's where the most business is, or why is that? Because I think you also, there was a project also on the luxury, in luxury watches with the Richemont Group. So, why are these kind of supply chains not included in the strategy?
Yeah, so if you go into mining, it's kind of it's looming as a strategic topic, but we haven't yet received any. I would say, generally as a strategy, as I see it, has always an inside out and outside in perspective. So the market and the capability side. And I think strategy is at the sweet spot for agriculture is for SSC at the sweet spot, because the market is really developing in that front. And right now, there's a lot of demand and people noticing, particularly ones with agricultural supply chains are noticing. I've, cleaned up my own house, but I noticed that my impact actually is in my supply chain. So now I have to take responsibility there. And SPTs, for example, are really confirming that trend. So that's the market side. I think is very, very, very promising on that. And also, if you look into mining, for example, often get there. So talking to Richemont, to Porsche, mining materials that don't know where it comes from. So they're starting to their suppliers have no idea what stuff is. So not really ready to yet take action. And if you're taking the capabilities view, so why should we be able to compete in this field? I think it's a lot about we're trying to kind of link us to Southport's history around project development, and the projects that we've been doing are mostly at a kind of landscape level. So right, we did projects with communities, with on cook stoves and water filters. We do projects on reforestation and conservation. So we do projects quite a bit in this context, which are very relevant for if you look at agriculture at a landscape level, that's where it really becomes important. So that's where we can really play to the strengths of our project portfolio most, I find. So forest conservation, for example, is not so relevant for manufacturing, but it's more important for agriculture. Likewise, for community projects, it's not so important for manufacturing, but it's more important for agriculture. So you could also say in agriculture, the business relevance of social and natural capital is most clear, because you can probably keep a fabric company, a manufacturing site running for a while if it's deforested around it, but it's getting harder to make that happen if you're in agriculture, where, for example, you're really relying on forests to keep providing, to have a watershed still functioning. So for us, I think it's a very sweet spot, both from capabilities and market side. At the same time, I know that, for example, Kroc is also how we as a team evolved, right? Where we got initial mandates, where we now really have a track record in. I do think that, Kroc, for example, is focusing more on manufacturing. And I think there's also a lot for us to win in there, more on energy efficiency and so forth. So for a company, for software as a company, there's also different fields to play in. Other questions? I can't hear you anymore. I think Mariano muted you. That's what it said here.
Yeah, but I think they are saying that no questions from their side as well till now.
Okay. Good. Then,
Tilman, one last question. You mentioned you focus only on the big clients. Did you think? I mean, why not have a simplified offering for smaller clients? Is that not worth it, or?
It's honestly it's kind of it's a hypothesis, and we're putting emphasis to try to really establish relations to those. Or each strategy needs a reality check, and right now we are actually getting quite a few clients that are not hitting that benchmark, but for some reason, because of they're maybe really engaging in insetting, and they can, and they do one insetting project which is fairly big, and they're ready to do this one project, and they're still, they're still relevant for us. So we don't need a specified offering. It's also for us, it's an important tool to guide our comms. So we had in the past, in our business development, we had in the past many discussions with like smaller, startup companies where you can discuss forever and ever, but they will never have the funding to pay you. And they take as much time as to talk to PepsiCo or Kellogg's, and if you win PepsiCo, then it's, it's much easier to get on. Let's see, we might revise that, because now we actually find, we're not saying no necessarily, if it's a decent company, we have quite a few companies now between 100 million and 1 billion turnover that we're discussing. We haven't maybe addressed them so much in the first place, but we find that they, are capable to pay, and they have interest in our offering. So we're not saying no, but it helps to kind of steer a bit and remind ourselves that, we should try to get for the biggest ones. Good. Then just to wrap up, maybe, you can also look at those slides later on where we have the more detailed slides. We're having I don't have the slide in here, sorry, but we're having a monthly SSC call, which goes to everybody who's interested in we have a group of like 30 people who's invited there, where we always talk about a recent topic, a recent project as a kind of short learning session. And then we're giving each other an update on how things go, particularly around business development. Christina.
Actually, I'm wondering about that call, because this is like 3 or 4 a.m. for us right now. So is there actually recordings?
For the call, no, so far we haven't recorded. We typically did it in LatAm time so far.
Sorry, we're not hearing you again.
Can you hear me?
Don't.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Currently is now recording. We normally did it in a LatAm friendly time. Last time not, because it didn't work out with a reminder schedule. Then Australia was very happy because they could join. If it's easy to record, maybe you should start doing that. We can start doing that. I think Mariano, maybe you have to tell me, or actually Alexandra has taken over the coordination of that call in the future. You can tell us, or we'll flag to Alexandra to check in with you, Mariano, because are you not hosting this one with a broadcast, or are you doing it, Sarah? So we can connect in that and try to record it. But that call, if you're not yet part of it and you would be interested in joining, just let me know and I can add you to the group, or ask your colleagues Miguel and Christina, which are, at least you two are for sure in the group who's invited regularly, and Mariano you as well, right? And Pablo. So
and what about alternating times, Tilman? So you say it's every 2 weeks or every month?
Every month.
So yeah, once a month at a time where people in LatAm can join, and in the next month Asia time.
Yeah, it's more people in LatAm and in Asia. We sometimes can find good time spots, but yeah, we'll take that into account. Sounds reasonable. Great. So thanks everybody for
listening. Thanks a lot.
And inviting. Thank you. Have a good rest of your call, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But actually, I think we're done. There is no need to share any news because we had a call not so long ago. So thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.